I'd failed 3 subjects in high school: physics, chem, maths. I was a pretty shitty student, to be honest, and even those who were closest to me, my friends and family, they thought that I wouldn't amount to much in life. But around 6 years ago, I had this burning desire to fix my life. I did not just want to die a failure and filled with regrets. Ever since that day, I read hundreds of self-help books, watched 1,000 different podcasts on productivity, and I tried a bunch of diets and supplements. In this video, I'm going to condense that 6 years of knowledge into 3 actionable protocols that completely flipped my life around. So much so that I went from this total academic failure to someone who has worked as a software engineer at Fortune 500 companies like Dell Technologies, AMD, Synopsys. Additionally, I became one of the top performing students in both my bachelor's and my master's program. I accomplished all of these things while pursuing self-development in other areas of life. Now, quick note here, these protocols that I followed, they were not 5-minute hacks. And to be honest, if you're looking for a quick fix to your problems, then perhaps this is not the video for you. Because these protocols do require you to make some lifestyle changes, but trust me, from week 1 or week 2, you're going to see a noticeable difference in you. So let's get right into it. So imagine there are 2 people. Let's call them person 1 and person 2. Now, person 1 and person 2 both want to reach the same destination. But person 1 decides that, you know what, I'm just going to take turns based on where I wish to turn, and eventually I'm going to reach this destination after a while. Person 2 decides, you know what, the location is way too big. The space that I'm in is super large. It's kind of going to be very difficult to find this particular destination. So I'm going to follow a map and know when to turn, the exact route. Who do you think is going to reach that destination sooner? Who's going to reach that destination in far less effort? The obvious answer is person 2, because he has the map to that place. He knows where the shortcuts are. He knows where the potholes lie. He knows the routes to avoid. Whereas person 1 is going to be like moving around in circles, random turns. He's going to hit the same spot over and over again. And he's spending all that effort, all that fuel, and yet he doesn't reach anywhere. He doesn't reach his destination. Or maybe he accidentally reaches his destination like 10-15 years down the line after a bunch of struggle. The point that I'm making with this analogy is that I was living the life of person 1 because I had these goals, these ambitions, like I wanted to become a software engineer, but I had no plan, I had no routine for it. I used to just wake up and start living, to be honest. A very impulsive way of life. Wake up, if I felt like studying, I would study. If I didn't feel like studying, then I would just lay on the couch and scroll through social media. It was as if my entire life is based on my mood. And when your life is entirely based on mood, you realize that you tend to skip away the important things. You tend to not make the right turns. You tend to just make turns at whims, and you end up just oscillating in the same spot over and over again without ever reaching your destination or without ever progressing towards your goals. And this is one of the reasons why my grades were so bad, because I never used to be able to study for exams unless the exams were just a couple of days away. And this was because I was living without routine. I did not have a slot allotted, but ever since I started living my life by routine, like I had a time fix and an activity for that time, things changed. I suddenly realized that I was no longer procrastinating all these activities because I was not just living life by my own impulse, emotion, or mood. So I knew that, okay, Jibril, you got to do activity X, Y, Z at time X, Y, Z. All of this removed a lot of decision making from my life. Previously, without a routine, I had 1,000 different possibilities in a day. I would debate myself, what should I be doing right now? Should I be studying right now? Should I be hitting the gym right now? Should I be relaxing right now? And then I had to make a pros and cons list for each of these activities. And then I had to pick one. And then an hour from that, I have to repeat the same process again, pick what activity to do and which is better at that moment. And all this requires a lot of psychological energy, and it is draining. And this psychological energy, this neural drive, could have been used for the activity itself. And this is one of the most important things that a routine offers. It removes the decision making from your life, and it literally tells you to just follow this piece of paper. This piece of paper is the map to your destination, to your goals. So if you want to become a software engineer or pretty much anything in life, you need to have a routine which almost acts like the map to that thing. Ever since I started living by a routine, I used to never miss study sessions. Like I had the study session there from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. I am going to study. Another thing that I observed while living my life by routine was that when you have the time and the place for activity noted down, you are much more psychologically and physiologically prepared for that activity. Like you expect that activity to come. So for example, if I I knew that, okay, today I have to work on data structures and algorithms. I need to do some lead code problem at 3 p.m. I knew that I was expected to work hard at 3 p.m. I was psychologically primed for it. I was ready. You know what? You're going to sit there and we're going to be doing some hard problems. But if you do not have these activities scheduled and someone just says, hey man, you're going to do 3 hours of coding, then it's really going to be difficult for you to begin that activity because you have not psychologically primed yourself. So this is one of the tips that I can give you. Start living your life by a routine such that this routine is going to lead you to the destination. No more living impulsively, no more waking up and doing things on whim, because when you do these things on whim, then your productivity decreases significantly. Here's one thing you need to keep in mind while designing a routine. Make sure that you do not make it too hard or too strict, at least initially, because I have been victim to that. I once created a routine where I was expected to wake up at 4 a.m., study for 4 hours, then immediately hit the gym for 2 hours, then come back and read a book like 40 pages or something. And it turns out that I did wake up at 4 a.m., but just seeing the amount of things that I had to do, I completely felt stressed out and anxious, and then I gave up on the routine. I just woke up and started playing video games. So initially, make sure that you do not make your routine too complicated or too constrained, else it's going to overwhelm you. Start with something basic, start with something small, have like 3-4 tasks a day, make it light, make it chill, make sure that you have a fun time while actually attempting it, and gradually as you develop the discipline to follow that easy routine, you can start adding tasks to it or extending the duration of tasks. And to be honest, initially, I did not complete every single task on this routine. Maybe I had a success rate of like 50, 60, 70%, at least initially, like the first few weeks. But even that was significantly better than the life that I was living. That was completely based on whim and desire. And now I want you to think about two versions of you. Let's say version 1. This guy lives his life by a routine and his destination is to become a software engineer. So he has, let's say, tasks related to developing as a software engineer in his day. Let's say he does lead code for a couple of hours. He does a project or two for a couple of hours. Versus person 2, he has nothing on his routine. He just wakes up and decides on spot, what do I feel like doing today? Which one do you think in the next 1 year is actually going to make it as a successful software engineer? The next point is something absolutely crucial, without which you can never make it as a software engineer, let alone as any engineer, to be honest. For this, let me tell you a quick story. And this dates back to my high school days. I was just sitting in one of these math classes and there was this professor. He was writing things on the board. I could see what was being written on the board. I could hear what he was saying, but absolutely nothing registered in my head. That's because I had a very, very shitty attention span. I used to zone out. I used to be irresponsible. People used to talk to me and I wouldn't pay attention. I had a lot of these ADHD-like symptoms. And the truth is that if your attention span is short, like you cannot concentrate, you cannot focus, that means you cannot learn. And without the ability to learn, you're fundamentally broken in some sense. I remember back in high school when I had an exam the very next day, I was there with all my notes open, but for some damn reason, I couldn't focus on my work and I kept scrolling. I kept looking at social media and I was kind of angry at myself. Bro, you need to get these things done, but it's as if my mind had a mind of its own. So if you're someone like I used to be and your attention span is quite short, there are things you can do to significantly improve it. So the first tip that I would give you is completely stop watching any form of short form content. No more TikTok, no more Instagram reels, no more YouTube shorts, no more just scrolling through posts, because your brain literally has the ability to rewire itself. When you constantly feed it short form content like 60-second long reels or small posts that you quickly gloss through and then go to the next one, you are literally teaching it to only be able to pay attention for 60 seconds before chasing the next fun activity, the next novel video. And that is why you get so bored or zoned out when you're actually trying to study. So immediately quit any form of short form content. The second tip is start viewing your attention span, your ability to focus, like a muscle. So if your muscles are untrained, they're going to suck. You're not going to be able to lift heavy things and you're going to be able to focus for long durations. So start training your focus and your attention span. And the way that I did it was that as soon as I used to wake up, I used to spend the first initial hours, 1 to 4 hours a day, on something that required a lot of my cognitive ability. Either it was studying math, calculus, or whatever may the task be, it has to be some sort of thing that demands focus and attention. And when I first started, I could only last for 10-15 minutes before I got zoned out or tired. What I would then do is like take a break and then repeat that thing again, then repeat that thing again. My breaks were like 10-15 minutes long and my study sessions were like 20-30 minutes long, and gradually they started improving. Like all these mental reps, these exercises that you were doing, the stress that you were putting on yourself, eventually this increases your attention span. Just the way you train your muscles, you have to train your attention span every single day, and eventually day after day after, you need to increase the resistance, you need to increase the duration for which you study, and you need to add more sets, add more study sessions within the same day. And I found that the best time to do this mental exercise or focus sessions, deep work sessions, is at the beginning of the day when you haven't accumulated the stressors of the rest of the day. Your parents haven't shouted at you, or your boss hasn't yelled at you, or your wife hasn't complained, and you don't have to worry about paying rent. None of these things have piled up. You're fresh, your mind is a clean slate. That is the best time to perform your deep work. You could wake up like an hour or two before uni or an hour or two before work and actually work on these core software engineering tasks. The last way that I found that helped me increase my attention span is so simple, yet 99.999% of people never ever attempt it. And this thing is meditation. And the way that I meditated was as follows. Many people think that when you're meditating, you're not supposed to have any thoughts, right? You're just supposed to be a blank slate. And that is ideal, but the truth is you are going to have thoughts. Thoughts are not in your control. For example, do not think about a pink elephant. You see what your mind did there? First thought that came was a pink elephant. The thoughts are not in your control, my friend. So this is the way you actually meditate. You close your eyes, you focus on the darkness or a central point or on your breathing, and you continue to just focus on that thing. But as thoughts come, you recognize that you're having a thought and you pull yourself back to the point of focus and continue focusing. And this is going to keep happening. You're going to have a thought. You need to bring yourself back, recognize that you had a thought, and bring yourself back to the point of focus. Eventually, as you perform this over and over again, you're going to realize that the frequency or the time period between two thoughts has increased significantly and you're more focused for a longer time. I would recommend meditating between 5 and 10 minutes this way. This has given me the best bang for my buck. In 2024, we are surrounded by stimulus all around us, video games, social media, etc., etc. So we are bombarding our brains with stimulus. But meditation teaches you how to live without stimulus. So when you're actually studying, you realize that you're not going to find yourself being as bored because you're used to living a life without stimulus and you're used to just focusing at a central thing. Following these protocols for just 6 to 8 weeks, I was able to go from 20 minutes a day to 4 to 5 hours a day. And this allowed me to learn data structures and algorithms, work on lead code problems, work on projects, side hustles, you name it. When you have the ability to focus for this long, then your journey towards becoming a software engineer becomes significantly easier as compared to someone who can just focus for 20 minutes before burning out. If you're someone who values information-based content rather than just pointless entertainment, then make sure that you subscribe to the channel because I'm going to be making a lot more of these and you don't want to miss out. The third protocol is so crucial that no matter what I did, if I did not adhere to this protocol, my life would still be broken. So back in high school days, anytime I had a shitty day at school, or if I was bored, I was stressed, or if I was anxious, or if I was depressed, or if I got rejected, whatever negative emotion I experienced, I tried to numb myself down instantly. And fast food, social media, pornography, Netflix, video games, all these things became my coping mechanism. Like I wanted instant pleasure to numb away these negative feelings that had just arisen. And to be honest, this did work. Like I started feeling better as soon as I indulged myself in these things after a bad day. But what happens over time is that you become depressed, you start losing your motivation, and you start becoming addicted to these things to cope with life. And I realized that these things did not even give me pleasure anymore. Now I had to use these things just to become normal. And these things release a shit ton of dopamine into your brain. And dopamine is this neurochemical associated with happiness, motivation, pleasure. But what happens when your brain is just bombarded with this dopamine from these shitty instant gratification giving activities is that you begin to find other productive activities boring. And that is what happened to me because I was just so reliant on instant pleasure from social media, Netflix, pornography, you name it. I started to find healthy, productive activities as boring. Like after playing video games for 2 hours a day, you have no desire to read a book which is white page and some black text on it. It's simply not that stimulating. And if you cannot find your work, software engineering, studies stimulating, they do not give you pleasure anymore, then trust me, you can't do them sustainably. So as soon as I realized this fact that, okay, there is no such thing as free pleasure, all these activities that I'm doing are basically costing the future me. They're killing my motivation, they're killing my drive, and they're making me bored of the productive things. I made a list of all these activities. Every single thing that I thought was bad for me or gave me instant pleasure. Netflix, pornography, video games, fast food, and your list might have a few different items that you kind of know that subconsciously this is bad for me. And then I started working my ass off to quit all these activities. And some of these activities, I just quit them cold turkey. For me, moderating some of these behaviors, like, oh bro, just have them in moderation, or eat this in moderation, or scroll in moderation, did not really work for me. I just found it way better to like quit them all cold turkey, or at least make these activities as hard and as difficult to perform as possible. For example, like if you are someone who cannot live without social media, you cannot imagine a world where you've completely quit it cold turkey the way I did it, then just uninstall the app, and then each time you feel like binging or scrolling, then you make yourself reinstall it. So this adds enough barriers so you don't do it quite often. And this trick of making some bad behaviors as hard to perform as possible will actually make you perform them far less frequently than if they were like easily accessible. And you're going to notice that just a couple of weeks after quitting these behaviors, your hunger, your drive towards your study, your academics, your desires to improve in your career, it is going to return back in you. You know, when you ask a kid that, hey buddy, what do you want to become, some 6-year-old, and he gives you these super passionate, over the top answers like, I want to become a scientist, I want to become an astronaut, a football player, and eventually the same kid over a period of time when he's like 18, 19, his answers completely change. He's this deflated zombie. I believe that happens due to killing your motivation and desires due to instant gratification. And once you quit all these instant gratifications, that childlike energy returns, that zest for life returns. And that happened to me. Also, what I noticed that when I quit these activities, these instant gratification activities, I had a lot more free time, like voids in my day. So if you're someone who's been playing video games for 2-3 hours a day and all of a sudden you stop playing video games, you're going to realize that you have a lot of free time. You need to fill this free time with other productive activities. You need to substitute instant gratification with delayed gratification. Otherwise, if you don't substitute them, you're just going to be bored staring at walls, and eventually you're going to be tempted to go back into that lifestyle. Because you need dopamine, you need some sort of pleasure to just exist through life. And it's better, significantly better, if you get that pleasure, that joy, that dopamine from delayed gratification activities like hitting the gym, reading the book, socializing, communicating with friends or loved ones, writing, learning, you name it. These activities do give you dopamine, but it's delayed. Also, it works on you as a person. You actually grow as a person. If you're someone who's ambitious and really wants to achieve a lot in life, but procrastination and bad habits are really holding you back, then make sure that you click on the link in the description and book a one-on-one call with me. In this call, we'll discuss where you are in life and what your goals are and how I can help you achieve them. I only take on 5 clients at a time, so make sure you do it now so you don't miss out.